I find myself really interested in the path that Billie Eilish has taken. Like, she's only 22. She has 2 Oscars. She has a boatload of Grammys. She's also unlike any other pop star working right now. Today on the show, the group chat is here, and they all have thoughts on Billie's brand new album. I'm Alamin Abdul Mahmoud. This is Commotion. Look, it's already been a crowded year for pop music. We've got new albums from Taylor Swift, from Ariana Grande, from Dua Lipa, from Casey Musgraves, from Shakira, from Jennifer Lopez, from Beyonce. And all of that into all of this very crowded arena, which I didn't mention St. Vincent. I'm sorry. I don't want people to get mad at me. Also St. Vincent. Also Maggie Rogers. It's just been like a really busy couple of months in terms of pop music. And then into this crowded universe comes a brand new album from Billie Eilish. I want to play you a bit of the album opener. Here's a song called Skinny.
People say I look happy just because I got skinny, but the old me is still me and maybe the real me, and I think she's pretty. And I still cry.
There's a bit of Skinny from Billie Eilish's new record, Hit Me Hard and Soft. I don't know what to tell you. I love this album. I think it pushes the boundaries of what you might expect from a Billie record. Also, at the same time, it is kind of instantly recognizable as like, this is Billie Eilish. This is always who Billie Eilish has told us she is. From her very first hit song, which is Ocean Eyes, it kind of just seems like she's known who she was as a songwriter. I'm interested in that. And I got a couple of music writers with me to talk about this new record, Hit Me Hard and Soft. Aisling Murphy's here. Rihanna Cruz is here. Aisling, Rihanna, welcome to Commotion.
Happy to be here.
Hey, let's get into this. Aisling, I'm going to start with you. The album's been out since Friday. We've had a few days to listen to it. How is it sitting with you so far?
Oh my God, it's made it into my daily rotation at this point, honestly.
Okay.
And what's so fun about a new pop release is like I'll hear it on the first day, and then for the next week and a half, 2 weeks, TikTok will show me nothing but that new release. So I'll listen to it even more than maybe I planned to. So it's entered my life in a pretty significant way, and I'm still obsessed. I really like it.
Rihanna, this is not the case with every album. Like, some albums come out and you listen to it once and go like, I did it because that's my job, and the job is to listen to new albums, and I don't really want to go back to this thing. How is this record sitting with you, 5-6 days later?
It's interesting. I feel like it's sitting with me better the more that I think about it. I think that, you opened with playing Skinny, right? Yeah. And I think Skinny is an interesting start to the album because I feel like this record is like Billie Eilish kind of railing against the past year that she's had promoting What Was I Made For from Barbie, this like depressing, maudlin, really good, but sad song. And Skinny as the first track kind of sets us up for that. And then you pivot into these more fun, more exciting pop tracks, which I really dig. I don't know. This record feels like Billie Eilish is like trying for a pop hit. She's been very anti-pop, and I think this record is going full capital P pop music.
Yeah, I think I'm interested in the ways that Billie engages in the construction of who Billie Eilish is in the public. She does that very deliberately. She does that really well. But also, you're right. In this record, she's kind of aiming quite loudly and openly for like being like, oh, you want a hit? You people want a hit? I will give you a hit. And here is one of those songs, because I think if there was going to be a candidate for a song of the summer from this album, it would be this one.
I could eat that girl for lunch as she dances on my tongue. Tastes like she might be the one. And I could never get enough. I could buy you so much stuff. It's a craving, not a crush.
Rihanna, I can't stop listening to Lunch. I don't know what to do with my life. It's the song that's taken over my life this last week. How do you feel about the song? How's Lunch sitting with you?
I like it. I don't know. I usually skew more towards Billie Eilish's pop hits, when I think of like what I like out of Billie Eilish.
Yeah.
Like I like the songs from her first record, like Bad Guy, like My Strange
Bad
Addiction.
Guy,
This
yes.
feels very in line with those in the sense that like the structure is a pop song.
Yeah.
The lyrics are very candid and not as flowery, I think, as we've become used to from Billie Eilish.
Yes.
It's very simple. It's very cheeky. I love a cheeky pop hit, and
Yeah.
I do think we're going to be hearing this everywhere this summer already, you know?
Yeah, it was interesting to me, Ashley, is that like when she put out this record, there were no singles before the album came out, and then the album comes out, and there's just an obvious song that is like, oh, this is the one that's going to take over everywhere. What do you think it is about Lunch that's kind of made it the obvious hit from this album?
Yeah, I mean, I find it interesting that it's coming out sort of right on the heels of Espresso by
Yeah,
Sabrina
Sabrina
Carpenter.
Carpenter. Yeah,
So
Like,
true.
yeah, like very similar vibes. There's a certain self-confidence to both of these tracks that, you know, we're entering hot girl summer, we're entering cool girl summer. Like it feels like these are both songs that are fully aware of their own desire, but also there's just a confidence there that I don't know, this feels like the right time for Lunch within the greater pop music landscape, I suppose.
it's also just the right time for lunch right now because I'm hungry.
So
Okay,
true.
if folks are just joining us, my name is Alamin Abdul Mahmoud, and this is Commotion. Today on this podcast, we are talking about this new Billie Eilish album, Hit Me Hard and Soft. Why don't we listen to a bit more of the album? Here's a bit of Shihiro. I love this song. It's really working for me. Again, so this is Chihiro, Billie Eilish, new album. Actually, the phrase "pop girl spring" has been sort of thrown around in terms of just this floodgates of new massive albums from pop singers that we know and love. Where do you think Billie sits in relationship to all of those?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I find that Billie's new record almost leans into potentially like mental health and the negative side of that more than some of these other Pop Girl Spring albums that we're looking at. Like Chihiro that you were just playing, the bridge of that song sounds like a panic attack. It feels like a panic attack. Like 100%, this is a very exciting new pop record, but then it's getting into quite dark and contemplative places. Like there's a lot of, hey, my coming of age wasn't so great. Anyway, let's dance.
Yeah.
Which is super fun. And also like there are so many facets and layers to this album. It's not purely, hey, it's summer, let's dance. It's, hey, I have a lot going on right now.
But let's dance.
Totally.
I will say, Rihanna, like something that I've found consistent with Billie is that there's like a third act transition to all her songs. Like the songs are all very dynamic. They begin in a place and then they end somewhere else. And usually it's like, oh, I had no idea this was the coda that was coming. I had no idea this was the third verse that was coming. It just sort of takes you by surprise. Sonically speaking, it's like a complete giant shift. Like you mentioned Bad Guy earlier, giant dance song until the very last, verse chorus, where it just kind of becomes like this like slowed down sort of trap thing. She just loves a big switch up, which like I think like to me like that's the title, Hit Me Hard and Soft. These songs do that. They begin in a place, they end in another place. Usually it's not the place you expect. When you think about Billie and the sound that she's created and the textures that she's created, she worked with her brother Phineas on all her albums. What do you make of the soundscape that Phineas has created with her for this record?
Well, I think they have 2 Oscars, right? So I think there's
They
like
do.
a penchant for cinematic song creation, and approaching a song in this 3-act structure, like you mentioned. I think this record leans very heavily into that. There's a couple songs with such radical beat switches. Like I heard somebody call it like Billie Eilish's sicko mode, is like on this record.
Travis Scott reference, yeah. Yes.
Right, exactly. So I think what Phineas is going for on this album is kind of like pushing the boundaries of like what we know Billie Eilish to sound like, and kind of furthering that a little bit more. Like there's more beat switches, there's more pop hits, there's a couple moments that are very like weekend cinematic synthesizer, disco moments on the album, which I
Big
never really
disco
thought I would
moments.
hear.
Yeah, 100%. But the conversation that people have, Ashling, all the time about the relationship between Phineas and Billie, and like they're 3 albums deep into their career, as well as all the EPs that came before that, is like maybe it's time for her to find another producer. There's the people always like talk about like, wow, maybe it's time for her to find somebody else to work with. I think this is the case against that. I think like I listen to this album and go, oh no, there's a safety in this partnership that sort of helps them both get to an interesting place creatively. Literally from the first album, they created in their bedrooms because they just like they made that record in their house. There's something to me that's kind of interesting about a partnership that keeps kind of growing. I think like they push each other into different places. Are you done with the Billie and Phineas partnership? Or are you kind of like, no, this should stick around a little bit more?
No, I'm so impressed by how they continue to develop both individually as producer and vocalist,
Yeah.
and then together as a unit. What you were talking about with the third act switch,
Yeah.
I can't really think of any other mainstream pop artist who like with, oh my god, between L'amour de ma vie and then going into the next song, it's like it's mellow and kind of lo-fi, which is what we know from Billie Eilish, but then we get into like 100 Gex style hyper pop kind of out of nowhere.
Yes,
I
we
don't
do.
necessarily,
Auto-tune.
yeah, I'm obsessed with that, and I don't know if another producer would be willing to swing that widely and risk that much with Billie Eilish. Like I'm so obsessed with the risks that these two keep on taking, and they should keep doing it because I think that it's working for them.
Yeah, I think like for all the conversations we end up having about producers, this is one of those where I go, I expect this pairing to continue, and actually like I'm interested in where they sort of keep pushing each other. Rihanna, I want to play you this clip. Billie Eilish went on Zane Lowe's podcast and talked about making this record with her brother. Let's listen to this right now.
I feel like every time you put anything out, it feels like your nudes leaked a little bit. And I think this one specifically is like that. And I think that, something that Phineas and I said to a couple people when we were starting to play it for people was that we kind of made the album that if somebody had said, I want you to make an album and no one is going to hear it. We pretty much, with exceptions, made that album. Like we made an album without really any or much thought of like other people.
So that's an interesting and relatively radical position to take. Also, I don't know if I necessarily believe her. Rihanna, do you buy that? Do you buy the idea that like when Phineas and Billie disappear into the studio to make a record, they are able to shut the rest of the world out?
I mean, I feel like everybody says that. It's typical. It's typical pop. Pop lexicon to sell a record. Be like, this is my most authentic yet. I disappeared into that studio. But at the same time, like I do want to take it at face value and say that I feel like they are having, the two of them, Billie and Phineas, they're having more fun on this record, I think, and it's tangible, right? And it's audible. We can hear it, and I don't know, like I like it. I think it's personal in a way that her previous records have kind of shrouded in like a veil, I think like we lift up the veil on this album and get really authentic songwriting and kind of what Billie wants to do in this moment. I don't know. It's like a mirror,
Yeah,
not a mirror.
I think like this is what I like about Billie is that like I think she's given us a bunch of grammar to just understand her work and sort of like process how she feels about stardom. So much of her music is about that stuff. Ashley, when you listen to this record, do you hear a more confessional Billie than like you did on Happier Than Ever?
100%. I mean, that was the thing that really struck me when I was sitting down to review the album. It's like, this feels like having a conversation with Billie over like a really good piece of cheesecake. Like it felt a lot more both candid, maybe more playful, and a little less like she's trying to prove anything with this record, which I really appreciated. Given that it feels like in the past year or so, a lot of her life hasn't necessarily been her own to share. Like we've seen that the media kind of outed her. Rolling Stone leaked her track list before she was able to share that for this record. It feels like on the album, she's really talking about herself and her identity and her experiences the way that she wants to, rather than how it's been portrayed in someone else's words. So in that way, yes, I think it's much more confessional than previous albums for sure.
I want to thank both of you for being here to talk about this Billie record. I really love this album, particularly because I think like when you're a pop star, you sometimes feel the need to like make a giant switch up for your next album, and I don't think you do. I think the thing that you can do is refine the very thing that got you here, while also giving us a valid tweak and being like, this is how my relationship with fame and being public has changed. I don't think you need to go the full Taylor Swift confessional model in order to become a star in this moment. I think Billie's done done it. I love this record. I appreciate both of you being here. Rihanna, Aisling, thank you for your time.
Happy to be here.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you.
was a delight. Thank you. Aisling Murphy is a freelance culture critic based in Toronto. You can read her review of Billie Eilish's album in the Toronto Star. Rihanna Cruz is a writer for Vulture and producer of its Switched on Pop podcast. I'm Alamin Abdul Mahmoud, and this is Commotion. Okay, I'm going to play you two voices, and then you get to decide whether they sound similar and maybe even too similar. Ready? Okay, here's the first one.
Hello. I'm really excited about teaming up with you.
That's Sky, the voice assistant to go with OpenAI's ChatGPT. And then this is the real Scarlett Johansson playing the voice of a computer in the film Her.
The DNA of who I am is based on the millions of personalities of all the programmers who wrote me. But what makes me, me, is my ability to grow through my experiences. So basically, in every moment, I'm evolving, just like you.
I don't know. Like, to me, they sound pretty similar. Scarlett Johansson says she's, quote, shocked and angered that OpenAI used a voice so similar to hers after she declined an offer to become the voice of the latest AI assistant. So OpenAI was going to roll out this voice assistant. They asked Scarlett Johansson, they said, would you do it? And she turned it down. And then she's saying the voice that they used sounds quite similar to the one that she used. Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI, is denying it, but has agreed to pull the new voice, at least for now, to talk about this feud, but also why it matters. We've got Alyssa Bresnak here with us. She's an editor with the LA Times. She's a pal of the show. Alyssa, welcome back to Commotion, friend.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, my pleasure. Listen, what do you think? Do they sound similar to you?
Yeah, I'm going to say if I were given like a blind voice test, I probably wouldn't be able to tell the two apart.
Yeah, that's exactly 100% how I'm feeling. Listen, Scarlett Johansson released this long statement through her lawyers. How does she say OpenAI was trying to persuade her to let them use her voice for this?
Yeah, I mean, she said that they pursued her almost 9 months ago, and that Sam Altman made the case to her that basically she could be a helping hand in the AI revolution and sort of bridge a gap between the general public's understanding or maybe fear of AI and their use of this open AI voice mode.
I gotta say, like, wanting to use Scarlett Johansson's voice in this tells me maybe you didn't quite understand the movie Her and the point of the movie Her. But that's a whole other conversation for another moment.
It's a theme.
There's something going on there. But I'm just gonna read a part of her statement. Here's what Scarlett Johansson says. She says that Sam Altman tried to persuade her because he felt that, quote, I could bridge the gap between tech companies and creators and help consumers to feel comfortable with the seismic shift concerning humans and AI. He said he felt that my voice would be comforting to people. Given that we're talking about the voice of Her, that movie, which I don't think is a particularly comforting treatment of AI in the future, by the way, what do you make of that? What do you make of the statement that she made about how they went about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a very interesting strategy. Like Sam Altman is kind of alluding in that statement to Scarlett Johansson to a strategy that many Silicon Valley companies have followed before, which is just like riffing off of sci-fi books and films for inspiration for real life products. It's not a new thing. Before we were in the AI revolution, there was a lot of talk in Silicon Valley that virtual reality was going to change the world. And big companies, as a way of making their technology seem familiar or digestible or understandable, search for ways to package it. And turns out some of the best people to package these things are sci-fi writers and movie makers. I think about like metaverse, like Neil Stephenson, who wrote the famous sci-fi novel Snow Crash, he created that concept. And that was sort of the basis for Facebook, now Meta's whole virtual reality platform. Yeah. And even when Microsoft had, they were releasing like a virtual reality headset many years ago, they called it HoloLens, which is a reference to the holodeck in Star Trek. It's like a simulation room on the TV show.
Right.
So I just think that this is like, I mean, Sam Altman's not naive. He's very strategic. He's a smart guy. Like, I think that he's he knows that if you can explain something to the public with a quick pop culture reference, you're
Yeah.
going to want to do it.
Yeah, you go, oh, it's like that movie Her, you know, like, and you don't, and therefore you don't need like another shorthand. Like it's sort of the celebrity of it all sort of does the heavy lifting for you. Now you have some personal experience with Sky. Why did you choose that voice? Like, when you were perusing all the different options, what appealed to you in that voice?
It's so funny because when this came out, I just like automatically went to it. And I think I'm so predisposed to associating like a sing-songy, higher pitched voice with a product like Siri, which over the years has been pretty disappointing, if not just very static.
Yes.
And I wanted like a confidant. I wanted an intellectual or thoughtful friend. And I heard that in the Sky voice. And, I was texting with a friend and he had chosen the same voice. Like, I think we were sort of subconsciously predisposed to think, hey, I've heard a version of this person before. This sounds like a real companion.
So you're like, I actually like want some texture to my voice in ways that, like, obviously, like an assistant like Siri, at least at the moment, can't do that, because like Siri's job is like to go, here's the most mechanical, delivery of information possible. Sky doesn't have that. There's sort of like a dynamism to the voice, if you will.
Yeah, and I think there's a like almost like this thoughtfulness of, I'm processing the information you're giving me, as opposed to like, I already have the answer because you gave me search terms. It's more like, I'm going to reference, I don't know. I mean, this is just part of the feature, but it's like, I'm going to reference things. I'm going like, there's been a lot of talk about how in general, this new voice assistant is very flattering. It's sort of like, reflects well on the person who's using it.
Right.
And I think that is also something humans do in conversation as well. They flatter each other.
Well, let me just say this. Sam Altman says that like the voice was not based on Scarlett Johansson. This is a thing that he said, presumably because there's some legal question marks that are going on around this. But he's on the record saying Her, is his sci-fi movie, and he also tweeted the word her when he launched the new voice. Does it seem far-fetched that the sort of similarity between the voices is completely a coincidence?
No, I mean, I just really think that it's quite clear that there was inspiration here. He's spoken at length about how Her is his favorite sci-fi movie, as you were saying.
Yeah.
And he's like gone into why he thought it got so many things right. Like he's taught clearly, because he pursued Scarlett Johansson, he really wanted to like sort of thread that needle.
Yeah.
And bridge as he said, bridge those two things. And so I think that it's just quite clear that he wanted to do this. And when Johansson said no, he said, okay, like, let's find a copy. I mean, we don't know this for sure, but
yeah.
If there is a legal case, it would be like very surprising to me if there wasn't one communication saying, okay, let's get someone like ScarJo.
But also, Alyssa, like I should say, like, you're in Los Angeles. What's at stake for Hollywood in a story like this one, do you think?
Oh my gosh. I mean, so much is at stake. Like, Hollywood studios are already aiming to use AI to replicate the likeness and voice of actors in perpetuity, and talent agencies like CAA, which represents ScarJo, have started building a vault of images and voice recordings of major clients just to preempt that. I mean, this was a major sticking point in the SAG-AFTRA strikes for actors.
Yes.
And I think it's one of those instances where it's like, we can't predict all the ways this is going to be used. And so tech companies are pushing the edge of like those limits and seeing what's going to happen. And whether or not they can do this will be tested in the courts, I think.
I can't wait to see how that ends up playing out. But Alyssa Bresnak, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here, friend.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Alyssa Bresnak is a regular here on Commotion. She's also an editor with the LA Times. Look, can I just recommend to you that you go and watch the movie Her? Because if you watch the movie, I don't think you come away from that thinking, yes, this is in fact the voice I want to use when I want to get people familiarized with the notion of, an AI voice assistant. The movie takes you into really complicated places when it comes to your relationship with technology. That's all I'll say about that. But in the meantime, that is it for the podcast. Listen, my name is Alamin Abdul-Mahmoud. This show is called Commotion. I'm going to be back tomorrow. Tomorrow, by the way, we're having a conversation about Black Twitter. Black Twitter, there's a new documentary about Black Twitter. Black Twitter is a force that is really shaping shaped my life, and I think a lot of people's lives, how we talk, how so much of the culture talks. I'm excited to get into that conversation. I will see you tomorrow. That's it for the show.